one day I realized when I was doing all my self-help investigating and everything in my 20s that I was in charge. I
Yeah.
made the decisions and I let go of, oh, I'm poor. Oh, I'm a minority woman. Oh, I let the government, I let go of all of that. Oh, it's my dad's fault. It was almost like I heard angels sing.
Hi everyone, Elle Ballard is here with you today with my special guest Elle as well. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. I'm excited for this conversation. Before we jump on, I will be very happy to introduce our guest today. Ell Graniel has over 25 years experience in the neuroscience behind the synapse, receptor, and reward centers of the brain. She has her degree in communication, training, and certifications in neurolinguistic programming, negotiation, personality type predictors, and authored 3 international best-selling books. Her most recent, The Team Whisperer, Successfully Lead a Cross-Generation Race and Gender Team, focuses specifically on improving communication by raising your emotional intelligence. Beautiful. Welcome, Elle.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So right after, with that beautiful introduction and your expertise and experience, why did you choose this particular field to be in and for your business?
I'm one of those stories where this field of knowledge and training and the work that I do actually chose me. I never was one of those kids, so as a little girl, I remember wanting to be a flight attendant, which is what it was called back then. And then I saw my first plane crash on the news. I'm like, no, forget that.
Oh
And
no.
then and then I wanted to be a policewoman because there was this show on with Angie Dickinson. I want to say it was called Policewoman, but anyhow, and I thought that would be super cool. And then one day, a policewoman came to talk about careers, and her life was so boring. It's all desk work for women back then. They didn't really get in the field, right? So, just a toss astronaut, like I just tossed all these things around, right? And I don't even like math. What made me think I want to be an astronaut? But anyhow, so because of the way my life was, being the oldest, of 3 and growing up in a highly dysfunctional home in, poverty and physical abuse,
Mm,
sexual abuse, like all the abuses, right?
mhm,
Mental,
mhm.
physical, emotional, drug, like put them all in there. I learned how to be a very good observer, a very good listener, and then also a very good negotiator at a very young age because those were survival techniques. I didn't know I was learning these skills. It was just, what was happening being the oldest and also being the caregiver of my sister and then later my younger brother. And so then I was always drawn to those types of things, books or TV shows or whatever, anything that had to do with those types of things. And then eventually in my 20s, that evolved into the work that I do now, which is, exactly that, teaching people how to raise their emotional intelligence, become more aware of reading the room, and understanding that people aren't dumb, they're just different. People
Yeah.
aren't stupid, they're just different, right? So understanding to let go of those labels and
Yes.
and then communicating in a way that works for them then works for both of you, because when you're a good communicator, you're not giving up any part of yourself.
Mm-mm.
What you're doing is you're connecting with how they prefer to communicate and creating those bridges. And so it just lights me up. I'm really passionate about the opportunity to do that every chance I get.
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that how you mentioned labeling. It's just so true.
Mm.
How we and a lot of the times we don't even notice that subconscious. We do it so subconsciously that we start labeling people and we are on Empowered Global Women in Business podcast, right? And part of Women of the World Network, where we have so many cultures as well. So adding culture labeling to that, in addition to our personal programming and beliefs, but adding cultural misconceptions to that, it just really makes it so complex and just so true. If
Mhm.
we're not aware, if we're not aware of it.
That makes me think, like, when we don't understand something, okay, so when we label or when we judge, it's
Mhm.
a cave day characteristic, right? So we stayed alive by questioning things that we didn't understand. Like, don't go near that, don't do that. You could get killed, you could get, eaten, you could. And so a part of us still does that as a survival mechanism. And so now the way to counter that, with this knowing that we have, is to simply ask questions. Like I'm Mexican on my father's side, so I understand quinceañera. I'm just giving you one small example. And we talked about it when my daughter had their quinceañera, and people were like, what's that? And I love that, instead of going, oh, you don't do sweet 16, uh,
Yes.
so that's like one of many cultural things. Just ask questions. Say, that sounds fascinating. Tell me more. Or
Yeah.
literally go, I've never heard of that before. Please enlighten me.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's just such a very familiar to me example, because I didn't know what quinceañera was when I was, but then I realized it's just such a beautiful celebration.
Mhm.
I love that. Yeah, I love that example. So true. That takes me actually to the next question is the background beliefs, your upbringing beliefs, right? And the background where you grew up and what you grew up believing in. How in your mind do you think that shaped your favored or not favored you some of that as you were growing and developing your professional skills and career?
I want to say it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, in the fact that I'm a firm believer that we're raised to think a certain way. We're
Mhm.
influenced by our culture, our parents, where we live on the planet, all of these types of things. And, so that's why I understand how some people grow up to be very prejudiced.
Mhm.
Uh, but the other side of that is, I also believe that there comes a time when you make your own decisions and your own choices,
Yeah.
and you can choose to let that stuff go.
Yes.
Right. So because I grew up in poverty, it was okay to lie, cheat, and steal, because that's what everybody did,
Yeah.
and nobody judged you for it. And if someone did judge you for it, you would just go, well, you don't know because you're rich. Your parents buy your clothes to steal them, or whatever the mindset was back then. And then I was lucky enough to go away to college, the first one in my family, the first one in the trailer park.
Hmm.
And not lucky enough, I made it happen. I knew I wanted to get out.
Hmm.
I wanted to get out. And so I got far enough away. And that was the beginning of, who do I want to be? What's my identity? How
Hmm.
much of my upbringing, because there were good things, how much of the good things do I want to keep, and how many of the things do I want to let go? Let go of, I've learned the lessons, right? And let go. So instead of saying, say, for example, I'm a survivor of domestic violence, I say I'm a graduate, because I
Hmm.
learned the lesson. A
Yeah.
survivor, to me, that word, because I'm a word nerd, still means you're carrying the scars. You
Yeah.
might still be tethered.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that there's not scars, but I'm saying that they don't define us. They've taught us,
Mm.
and they don't make us bitter, frustrated, angry, upset. And the best thing, and I don't exactly know when it happened, Elle, but one day I realized, when I was doing all my self-help investigating and everything in my 20s, that I was in charge. I
Yeah.
make the decisions, and I let go of, oh, I'm poor, oh, I'm a minority woman, oh, the government. I let go of all of that. Oh, it's my dad's fault. It was almost like I heard angels sing,
Mm.
that the awareness of that. And
Yeah.
then it was a little heavy, right? It's like, oh my gosh, now I'm responsible for everything. Because
Right.
blaming is so easy,
Yeah.
right? You don't have to work hard if you stay in the blame game. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me, and it was a process.
I love that the difference between the survivor and it's almost like you're still attaching yourself to it. But then when you graduated, you moved on, not that you forgot, it's
Mhm.
still part of your life. It's part of your experience, but you're not attached to it necessarily. Yeah, I like that distinction. I also love the freedom, the being, the recognition of that, the control. Yeah, I remember that as well when that happened. It's such a beautiful feeling of realizing, wow, I can actually control the direction of of everything that's happening around me or inside of me, my thoughts.
Yeah, definitely with your thoughts. And that's not to say it's not challenging. Like,
Yeah,
because I'm a minority female with
for
no
sure.
parental family ties that got me in the doors. Yeah. So I'm not saying just making that decision is makes things easier, but the level of control, especially in your thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
people just they just can't get to you. They can't take you down. You kick those people to the curb sooner than later. Like, okay, that's not going to be my friend. This is a job I need to leave. Like, you're able to make those important decisions sooner than later.
Like when you were building, right, your business, as you're building your business, as you're building your life, as you are working on yourself, we just talked about this whole, upbringing and it's so beautiful. We're so unique. And this is the reason why I love doing this, having these conversations with different women, because everyone is so beautiful, and has unique, beautiful stories. And these stories shape us, shape our path in life, shape our choices in life, professional choices. And as you are have been building business as a multinational woman, would you say was one of the biggest lessons that you had to learn?
One of the biggest lessons is, okay, two things. So, number one, when the pandemic happened,
Mm-hmm.
I'm very optimistic to the point where I drive people crazy sometimes. They're like, come on, I'm like, no, hang in there. It's going to be good. So I was one of those, this is going to be over in 3 months. This is going to be over in 6 months. This is going to be right. I just was in total denial that this was a
Yeah.
long-term kind of thing. So when I had to dive into my personal savings account to pay some office expenses, that was my wake-up call. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought, who cares if this is one more month or one more year? I need to go virtual, because I wasn't. I saw all my stages were live.
Mm-hmm.
I was a fitness instructor for over 30 years. So I taught fitness classes live, right, in person. And then, my clients I saw in my office. And so sometimes, so the lesson I learned was, it's good to be overly optimistic. There's great value in that.
Yeah.
And then also have a devil's advocate, somebody who's going to have that other side for you so that you can make stronger decisions more rapidly and properly. So, look, we're speaking now. We wouldn't be speaking if I hadn't gone virtual. I wouldn't have clients in Ohio and Florida and Canada, and England if I didn't go virtual. So it was a blessing in disguise, right? But the one thing that I really like to tell women entrepreneurs, because they just don't want to do it, well, besides pick your lane, we want to serve everybody. We want to serve the entire.
Yes, that's good one for sure.
But to invest, pick the one thing that is the hardest for you and pay somebody to do it. So
Mm,
women think, I don't have the money to pay somebody, say, to manage my website or to do my social media. I don't have the money. But as long as you're doing those things that you don't enjoy, that are bringing down your vibration, and they take you 4 times as long as they should. So now you're not in your zone of genius. You're not making your, 500 plus dollars an hour. You're stuck in this thing that you could pay somebody $10 an hour for.
yeah.
And you're worth so much more. It's not that they're not, but they have a lot of clients and they love what they do. So they get it done like that. It could take you 2 hours, something they could do in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So once I started baby stepping into, independent consultants, or, and I do have a VA, and I put as much on their plate as they're willing to take, and then I'll subcontract out the other things. Man, life got better.
Mm-hmm.
More opportunities came around. I was free to take the opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah, I wasn't exhausted. So just take that one baby step. Like, what's the one thing? Say, okay, I can afford $100 a month on what? Like, what's the one thing that you really despise doing?
That's a good way to put it. That's a great way to put it.
Do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, because it's $100 a month is very doable for a lot of women starting their businesses, you
Mhm.
know, to kind of tackle that, or I don't have the money, right, to pay. Um,
Yes.
and so that's a great way to very clear way of, I like that. And then they can see where they can put it. And I completely agree. I remember I was so happy when I had my VA, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe, like, I've heard it before that I need to delegate, I need to do this, and I've been postponing. But once I did it, and then I started hiring other team members, and I realized, wow, it's just so true. We operate in our zone of genius, like you said. We also are in our full energy, and then we have more space and time in our head, time in the day to do what we love. We're so much more strategic with our time, and productive. I like that. And I like the $100 to start with. That's not a lot, so it's very, very manageable, very doable, starting simple. Going to even somewhere like Upwork, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having a few hours, and
The visual around that is they call it wearing all the hats, like when you wear all that as an entrepreneur. And you really do have to wear the hats for a lot of reasons. Number one, in the beginning, the budget. But secondly, when like I know SEO, I know websites, I know how to post on social media. I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But you can only hire a quality person if you understand it, right?
Yeah.
So there's some value in not being naive around it. But would you go outside wearing 9 hats?
Right.
People would think you're crazy. But you do that. You'll have 3 or 4 of them on metaphysically, so to speak,
Yes.
while you're working, and it's not really any different than really putting them physically on it at the same time.
That's a lot of hats to wear. I love that. And as long as they know what they are doing, it's such a great investment, right? Just making sure hiring a person who knows how to do that task. They know exactly.
Yes.
They're very well aware of that specific whatever you're looking outsourcing. Yeah, I like that reminder. Thank you for that reminder.
Sometimes there's value. I'll give an example. When I was writing my first book and the kids were young, it's hard to write a book with 2 young kids. And, I was married, but I was the primary person, hubby worked all the time. And so what I would do is I had a tiara, this little tiny crown. When I was writing, I'd put the tiara on, and the kids would know not to bother me.
Oh, I love it.
And I wouldn't abuse it, because as a mom, you're just like, God, I'm just going to put this crown on 2 hours a day just for my sanity. But it had a purpose. So it's not a hat, but it's kind of like that, right? There are times when we got to put the hat on to get the work.
Yes, I like that. And having it, maybe I'll wear it for 2 more hours just to give myself rest. Yes, I love that. I have not heard that before. Great idea. Great idea. Okay, so we are on Women of the World Network podcast, Empowered Global Women in Business. And I love always asking this question of multinational women in business. What does it mean for you to be a woman of the world?
I know that. So you may be familiar with the saying, think globally, act locally.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do my best, because you can get very overwhelmed with the trouble that females globally suffer from daily. It has brought me to tears, where I'm feeling like, what can I do? And so what I can do locally,
Yes,
continue to set an example, be a successful, female business owner, hire other people, and then have the money to be able to support some of these other causes, when necessary, or even travel there if it's possible to help set up your own foundations and such. So to me, that's what it means to be a woman of the world, is to understand that there's a lot of things going on globally, and it can be overwhelming. Whereas what can I do today, here and now, that makes a difference? Like a long time ago, when the beauty pageant gals used to say they wanted world peace.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean?
What does it mean? Yeah.
I mean, we know what it means, but what does it mean to you? How are you
How can I contribute to making it happen?
How can I
Personally?
Yeah. How can I be that one drop of water?
This is beautiful. It's beautiful. And I can totally relate building, having a big vision of building community. It relates. And I relate to what you're saying. Absolutely. and starting where I am right now, and it's really just taking the steps. Yes. Well, before we move to our rapid fire questions, I do want to say that we will post links to how to connect to Elle. We will post them in the comments of the video section on YouTube and also in our podcast area. So please connect with Elle. And Elle, please tell us, you are right now, where are you right now?
I now live in Mazatlan, Mexico.
Beautiful. So if we
Yes.
have listeners from out there or not, because we can do a lot online, yes, do connect with Elle. And yes, definitely, it's so important. Emotional intelligence is yeah, it's interesting. This is the second time today we were speaking on this topic. It's interesting. It's the topic of the day.
Oh, good. I'm so glad to hear that, because my most recent book, this one, The Team Whisperer,
Mhm.
Successfully, you mentioned it, lead a cross-generation race and gender team. This book came to me out of the passion of, during the pandemic, so many managers were thrust into these managerial positions just because they'd worked there the longest, or a lot
Yeah.
of people left,
Yeah.
and they just didn't get the proper training. And
Yeah.
all the people below them don't want to go to work. They don't like their boss, this, that, and the other. So teaching them leadership skills so
Mhm.
that the people that they lead enjoy their work, want to show up, want to contribute.
Yes.
And that's what really lights me up, is that it makes me sad, those things like the Great Resignation and minimal Mondays, and just it's employee retention being at an all-time low. Finding employees is challenging,
Mhm.
getting people, and it wouldn't be that way if leaders stopped being managers and started being leaders, because managing is for spreadsheets. You don't
Yeah.
need any personality to be a manager. To be a leader requires a lot from you,
Yeah.
to lead by example, and to have different ways to communicate. And what
Yeah.
it boils down to, back what you're saying, raise your emotional intelligence.
Yes. And how our listeners can get this book? Where can they get the book?
Oh, the Team Whisper, it's on Amazon.
Amazon. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, Team Whisper. You could just put that in, or you could put in my name.
Okay.
Uh, yeah,
Yeah.
and it pops up under Ell Graniel, and
It's a
and
solo
then
book, right? Is that a solo book or?
a solo book.
Is that a multi-author or a
Oh
multi-author?
yeah, no, all my books are me
Okay.
only. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And then I turned it into a certification. So it's an online certification. So people read the
Mhm.
book and they want to work with me on each module. So there's 10 modules to really anchor the knowledge, right? And take it back into the workspace with them. So that's kind of new, that I turned it into an online certification.
Great.
Something I would have never done if I hadn't have gone both virtual.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Beautiful. Well, congratulations with the book. Sounds really
Thank you.
interesting. I made a note here. I'd love to get the book as well myself. So yes, congratulations with that.
Thank you.
And yes, we will post links for Elle and her website, and so you can get the book that way as well, I'm sure, or on Amazon. And now we're going to move to the rapid fire questions.
Yay.
Yay! Are you ready?
I am, and excited.
Yay! Beautiful. So I have 5 rapid fire questions, and the first one is your favorite book name is?
Oh, my favorite book name right now is there's a previous author from a long time ago, Florence Scovel Shinn. So it's her works, the works or the writings of Florence Scovel Shinn. And
Mhm.
she was around during like the Carnegie days, way back in the steel magnet, but she was a woman, right? So she didn't get the experience. So the works of Florence Scovel Shinn, because she has a lot of small books and they put them into one. And her language is all about faith and belief, and being in the invisible and knowing that it's possible, and how we radiate things with our thoughts. So she was way ahead of her
Oh,
time.
wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, the writings or the full collection of Florence Scovel Shinn is something that it's one of those books that I
Mhm.
read often, and
Yeah.
yeah, kind of tattered a little bit.
Nice. Yeah, beautiful. Second question, beach or mountains?
Beach. Hands down. Not only beaches, but West Coast beaches, because I'm a sunset gal. I'm not a sunrise gal. But
Mm,
I've lived on, and of course I've been to the mountains. Beautiful.
yes.
No complaints about the mountains.
Yeah.
Uh, and I do catch sunsets on the beach 5 nights a week at minimum.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. A favorite international destination to visit?
Well, I hadn't really traveled internationally a lot.
Mhm.
And so I've only been to a few places. And my next list of where I'd like to go is anywhere Italy. So I
Mhm.
haven't been yet.
Yes.
I mean, but I love Mexico. I love
Yeah.
Mexico.
Yeah. Beautiful. Same here. I haven't been to Italy. It's on my list as well. Okay, summer or winter?
Definitely against summer because I'm a beach person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, the last question is things that you have discovered about yourself recently.
So I did discover that it doesn't always pay to be overly optimistic. And I always knew, but am discovering that because I'm 61, that I'm learning a foreign language. I didn't speak any Spanish. I mean, no, I spoke some Spanish, but I wasn't fluent at all before moving to Mexico. And that it's just never too late
Hmm.
to keep learning anything if you open your mind to that it's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as you're too old.
Hmm.
What's the other saying? You can't teach an old dog new tricks. And if you want to believe that, then that will be true for you. So I've really learned by moving here and learning a lot of different things. The
Yeah.
driving is different, the language is different, the food is different, the culture is different, that my brain's loving it,
Mm.
loving it.
I love that.
It
Beautiful. Well, thank you for playing. This was fun.
was fun.
This was fun. Thank you, Elle, for being on our podcast today, all the way from Mexico. I hope you have an amazing, beautiful, relaxing weekend on the beach.
And it's interesting. There are beaches that are very tranquil,
Uh-huh.
relaxing. And so I do go there from time to time, but I love the beaches here with the bandas and the people, the
Yeah.
music. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like the kind of party feel of the beach.
Social the party. Yes. Yeah. So much fun. It's live. You feel live in music. Yeah. I would prefer that one to Tranquil Beach. I mean, there is a time and place, I think, for tranquility, of course, too. Um, yeah, yeah, definitely. But thank you for taking the time. This was great conversation. I know we'll speak soon. We'll stay in touch. And our listeners, check out Elle's work. She's beautiful, amazing. And with that, I will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you, Elle.
Thank you.